Our guest today was a 2000 Indy Racing League Rookie of the Year. He's an IndyCar Race Winner and a five-time Indianapolis 500 starter. We're joined by Airton Daré. Airton, it's great having you on the show. I grew up in the '90s, and by the time I was really watching IndyCar, you were dominating races and racing a lot of the races. And I will say that I have the 2002 IndyCar Series PlayStation game, and one of my best memories from that is always playing your car or selecting your car in the video game. So, but no, it's great having you on.
Good, man. It's great to be here. And since I stopped racing, this is my first interview I'm giving to somebody in the United States. I'm giving
Oh,
some
wow.
give some interviews here in Brazil, but to an American press or anything, this is my first time since 2006. So don't mind my English is a little rusty because I'm not practicing a lot, but I think we'll be fine.
Well, mine's pretty bad, and I practice all the time, so I'm pretty good there.
But no,
Great.
no, thanks. But no, thanks for coming on. And so I was looking into your, kind of your racing history a little bit, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. Sometimes Wikipedia is not always right, but you got your start jet ski racing. Is that correct?
Yeah, since I was 14 years old, I used to race jet ski. I won the Brazilian Championship like 6 times. I went to the World Finals in Lake Havasu. I think my best finish there was sixth place. And then I decided, I want to race cars, because that's what I really wanted at that time. And I started in Brazil in a Formula Fiat, which is a touring car, and Formula Chevrolet, and then I went to Indy Lights and IndyCar. I never went through go-kart, like everybody did, So most of my fellow Brazilians that used to race with me, they had a career in go-kart, and I just jumped that step. But the jet ski gave me some racing experience, not driving experience, but the racing world is kind of the same. But I miss that, I think if I had some experience in a go-kart, I could carry this to my career, and I could have a lot better results if I was already on a go-kart since the beginning.
Yeah, and you really see that a lot today. I mean, there's a lot of people coming from different disciplines. I believe there's some other guys out there, Scott. I think we interviewed someone who also did some jet ski racing. Um,
Yeah, I don't remember that. I remember, I'm pretty sure Connor Daly's mom was like
that's right.
world-class jet skier
That's
as
what I'm thinking
well.
of. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But guys come from motocross. You know, there's guys that do like mountain biking that transition to racing. So I think, and we've had this discussion before, but it seems like that really, like you said, it's not the same thing, but it kind of puts your mind in the competitive motorsports world, right? Like it prepares you in a way. And I mean, the whole just dealing with the speed and the reaction times and stuff, I would think that's all translates pretty well.
Yeah, I think that helps a lot. And for me, the bad thing was, I was Brazilian champion. I pretty much win every race I go here in Brazil. I won every race I went to. And then coming from being a champion and everybody followed me, see what I'm doing, and go to the race cars where I was nothing. Then I had the big guys there, and I was like the little guy here. So I had to learn everything again and go step by step and try to climb back again, to be something. And which, I mean, my career wasn't the best, but I mean, I ended up winning one race. We almost won in the 500 in 2000 when Montoya won. I was like behind him, in the middle of the race until my motor blew up. So I think I mean, overall it was very good for me, for the experience I had, for the, I mean, change of path I had. And you said motocross. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm racing motocross right now in Brazil.
What kind of bike you ride?
Now I just moved to KTM. I used to bike a KX 450. Now I just bought a new KTM like a couple months ago. I'm still adapting to that.
Sure. Yeah, I very small period of time in my life raced motocross when I was a kid, and my brother raced semi-pro before he started racing, like uh, in America, midgets, sprint cars, open wheel type stuff. But man, I have so much respect for anybody that races motocross. That is so hard on you.
Yes, it is.
You know,
Yeah, and
you know.
and I,
I'm
and,
sorry.
and
Go ahead.
it's comparing to the motorsports. And especially for me, I'm racing on the weekends, on the local races. I'm not doing like big championships or not anything. I just carry my bike to my truck, and then my wife goes with me. We make some sandwich to eat in
Yeah,
the place. So it's kind of different from what I had when I used to race professional. I don't
it's
have to.
fun though. I mean, it's
Yeah, I
fun.
don't have to look for a sponsor or anything. It's just for fun. And if I go to the track and I feel like it's dangerous, or if I'm not feeling very well, I just load my bike back again on the truck and go back to home.
Right. And speaking of your career, hey, you made an impact because even I was watching a show last night and they mentioned your name as being a winner in the IRL. They were talking about some of the drivers from that era. They were talking about Raul Bussell and they were talking about Vito Mera and they mentioned you and stuff like that. So don't sell yourself short. That you had a good career.
I when I was racing, I expect more. I thought I was
Sure.
going to
No,
be
I
a
get it.
champion. I'm going to win a lot of races like I used to do on jet ski. But you have to. It's a different animal. It's a different game,
Sure.
and I mean I'm satisfied. I'm in one piece. And some broken bones. But everything was fixed, so I'm fine. I enjoyed.
What brought you to America? I mean, as far as like in your career path, how did you go from the Fiats to coming to America?
Well, there's one point in the career when you're in Brazil that you have to choose between Europe or America. And since I used to race jet ski in America and know the way they lived, I never been to Europe at that time. And I had some contacts here and some friends who worked with some other drivers. And so I came here and then did a test with Brian Stewart Racing. I don't know if you remember this. He had a team in Indy Lights and did really bad. I spun like 100 times in the place. Oh, I think it was Big Springs. As an old airport, they used to rent to just test the cars. But then, second test was a little better, and it was a big jump for me because I was coming out from a Chevrolet, which is a really small car with a 2-liter motor, no horsepower at all, and then to a Indy Lights, which is a carbon fiber car, with the chassis and if I'm not mistaken, we had like 400 horsepower, something like that. So I kind of jumped the Formula 3 step, because I used
Sure.
supposed to be on Formula 3 and I get used to the chassis cars with the carbon fiber. But I had the opportunity at the time because I had the sponsorship that could bring me to the United States, and I didn't have the experience. But if I wait one more year in Brazil, I didn't know if the following year I could have the money. So I had to take the advantage. I came,
Sure.
and it was a learning year the first year with Brian. Then I drove for Tasman a couple of years. It was really good. I learned a lot there, and then Indy cars.
Now, how much did you know about the Indy 500 before you came to America? I mean, is for a lot of people like that's something that they watch as a young kid, no matter what country you're in. Was that something you were did you watch or really aware of the magnitude of?
No, and even when I was racing, I didn't know how big the event was. Uh, and it's funny to tell you that because when I watch a race, when I tell I have a 17-year-old daughter, I tell my daughter that I used to race in that race, it feels like I'm lying to her. I don't
Right.
feel like I used to be there, because I didn't realize how big that race was. First, because in Brazil, by that time when I was young, it wasn't very popular until Emerson started to win and I started to watch the race. But for me, when I was a kid, it was just like a race that pays $1 million. And when I was there in racing, I was so involved with racing and getting the car ready and setting up the car that you don't realize how huge that event is. So now that I'm outside, that I'm here in Brazil, I watch every race, and I mean, every time I watch, I mean, I got goosebumps, and I'm still, and I still dream that I'm winning the race,
Oh,
at,
wow.
even at this time, these days. But now I realize how big the race is, and unfortunately, I mean, I don't know if it is unfortunate or not, but when I was there racing, I didn't pay much attention on this, which I think it's a good thing, because didn't
Yeah.
didn't make a lot of pressure on me on that.
I think Montoya was kind of the same way. Like he went that first time. I think it took him years to, he wins it. I mean, obviously I can't speak for him, but just listen to him talk. He wins it, and yeah, how hard was that? But then years later, he didn't get to run it, and then he finally gets to come back and run it, and he wins it again. I think he starts to understand, hey, this is a big deal, and it just every year it became more important to him. I think.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's right. I think I heard him saying. I heard an interview of him saying that. I don't remember when, but
Right.
it's funny like that, because it feels like I said, it feels like it wasn't me, that I was doing that, and so important the thing was, and then, but it's I think it was a good part of my life, and then I enjoyed a lot, I could have a lot better results if I didn't, my motor didn't break, and then the 2000 race. I had some good cars too when I drove for AJ. In one point, we led the race for a couple laps. So I think if I had more years, because I
Right.
only raced 4 years in Indy cars. If I have more years, let's say a 10-year career, probably I would be able to get a good position, a good finish there.
You know, I know I'm glad you talked about the length of your career, and that is something that, and I guess you see it in F1 too. Maybe it's just Formula Car racing. That is something you see that even good drivers. I'm not talking about the elite drivers, the ones who at least won races immediately and all that, but the really good drivers, the ones that there's so many of them that seems like, man, they're just right there on the edge. They just got to get a little time, get the right situation, they can win, but their careers are so short. It's never they don't get to fulfill that promise. Was that something that you kind of felt, or was it just kind of come to an end and that's what happened, or
Well, what happened to me is when I had the deal with AJ, I signed a deal for 2 years, and by the end of the year, I think it was his grandson. He started to race,
mm-hmm.
Anthony,
Yep.
and I don't remember the other name, the Japanese driver.
Uh, I forget which ones were in the car
And
at the
he
time.
came in, and then I got a call from forgot that it wasn't AJ, somebody from this Jack from his team. Say, oh, well, we're gonna still keep paying your salary. You're going to the races, but you're not gonna race because we're only gonna have two cars, but we're still gonna honor the payments and
Mm.
everything. And I wasn't there for the money. I was there to race, and for sure the money was good, but and then one race after the other, and then in Indianapolis he decided to put a third car for me, and I finally raced in Indy. I don't remember what position I finished, but it wasn't very good because they didn't have the crew either, the crew to change tires and everything. And after that, I was supposed to drive for the rest of the year because the Japanese driver was going to do all the first races Indy, and then he's going back to Japan. So I was going to assume that 41 car, because the 14 car was going to be with Anthony, or was going to be the 41 car. There was when we went to Texas for the following race after Indy, and then my suspension broke on the practice session, and that was my big crash when I broke my leg, my arm, my hand, my I kind of broke my nerve here. I mean, a bunch of stuff, and that kept me out of the racing for until the end of the year. So I only did one race, and I only did Indianapolis that year. Uh, Next year, my contract had expired, and I was already here in Brazil, and I was working with my dad here, and I started to balance things. I had my family. I'm the only son. I had to my dad's business. I started to work with him. And I was like, maybe I can work and go to United States race and then come back, or maybe staying here. Or then I decided, and I tried to go to get a sponsor to race another year just to give it another try. But after you crash like that, people think you're afraid or you're gonna be slower because of the crash. I talked to a bunch of teams. They already had the driver signed, and I talked to a bunch of other people. I talked to Eddie Cheever, and I want to try to drive for him. And then he says, "Man, you're crazy. You almost die. You want to drive this? You want to do this again? No, no, go do something else. You're lucky you didn't die on that accident. Go do something else." Then I started to work with my dad here in Brazil. And I mean, and I went there 2000 and then 2006, I got a call. I don't remember the names. I got a call from somebody from IRL asking if I want to replace somebody from the Sam Schmidt's car. And I had one guy here. And I mean, let me explain. In the meantime, I built a go-kart track here in a farm that we had our business. And I had some drivers there, and then one of the drivers, his father wants to sponsor me in Indy. He's like, "No, if you go to Indy, I'll sponsor you. At least half of the money I'll put in your car, everything." So then he sponsored me, and I at the same time I had the people from Sam Schmidt calling me, offering me the car, and I had to bring the money, and I had the money from this guy. I was like, "Okay, let's go back there." I thought I was never gonna sit in the race car again, and then I went to Indy again, 2006. But it was we didn't practice the first week because the car wasn't ready. Second week, I took a little longer than I thought it was going to take to get used to speed back again. So by the end of the week, the qualifying, I was learning back the car and getting up to speed, and we qualified the car, but I couldn't work on the race setup. So the race was a disaster. I was just trying to stay out of people's way. And that
Right.
was the last time driving a IndyCar. I wish it was a more pleasure race for my last race, but what can I do?
Right.
Now, I thought it was interesting you were mentioning earlier, but just about, you never really, I guess when you were driving, lack of a better term, like understood the magnitude of the race. Now, you did the race 4 years in a row. Right? Yeah. And then you had 2 years off. And I'm guessing during those 2 years you watched the race. Now coming back, and at that point you probably thought you were never going to be back in the 500, coming back and competing in the 500 in 2006, did that change just your overall viewpoint of the race, just based on the fact that you probably thought you would never be back there, and maybe you got to kind of reflect on, your previous 500s?
Yeah, really, I'm not. I shouldn't go back in 2006 because I wasn't ready. I
Yeah.
wasn't ready. I didn't have the fit to drive. I wasn't mentally prepared for that. I came there like a week before I start to. I didn't even have a seat. I made a seat. They got somebody else's seat for the car, and then they just cut a piece here, cut over there, and then I kind of adjust myself to someone else's seat on the car. So it wasn't something that I wanna prove to myself that I can still drive the car after the accident I had, which is for me was good. I had some good laps in qualifying, and I was up to speed. I mean, from what for with the limits of the car and the crew and motor, everything. But I was up to speed back again. But race conditions is different. If you're not
Yeah.
racing every weekend or at least twice a month, or after the race, I almost pass out. I sit down on the wall, and I start to feel dizzy, and then they took me to the medical center because I wasn't working out, I wasn't doing it. So it's just getting somebody and put in the car and go do the race. to do a few laps, a qualifying lap, or or a test or something, it's okay. But the race is not a joke. It's not. You have to be prepared for that.
Hmm.
Now you mentioned driving for AJ, and obviously a lot of people have a lot of stories about AJ. But surprisingly, like most of the people that we've talked to several people who've driven for AJ, and they all have really really good things to say about him and just say it was a wonderful experience. But I'm just curious, kind of, how your experience was driving for him, and if you have have any AJ stories.
Well, I have a lot, but I kind of enjoy his way. I like the old fashioned way to do things. I remember I was sitting in the car. He had a mechanic working on my front rotors, and the guy was he couldn't put the tool in there, and I was looking at him inside of the car and looking at the guy. The guy was doing something wrong. He jumped the wall and he pushed the guy, grabbed the tool, and he did himself. The front brake. and then a lot of things. One time I was passing with him and with Eliseo Salazar in Indy,
Yeah.
and I was going to turn one, and the car was pushing a little bit on turn one. I wasn't able to go flat, and I stopped in the garage, and I was like, the car is still pushing it. And he looked at me and say, "Get out of the car." I was like, "Why? We're not going to fix that." He said, "No, I'm going to put a real driver in the car." I was like, "Okay, get out of the car." He brought Eliseo in, put Eliseo in the car, fit him in, and then he walked to the wall there, and then Eliseo started to ride, one lap, two laps, three laps. On the fourth lap, he beat my time for like a little bit, and then he looked at me and like, "See how it's done?" And as soon as he said how it's done, I heard boom. AJ crashed on Eliseo crashed on turn one. He almost died. He broke some artery on his
Oh
heart,
wow!
and then it was big deal for him. And because the car was dangerous going there, and he couldn't believe me.
Right.
So we all got worried about Eliseo. We went to the hospital to see him. I went to the hotel. I was in the hotel, and then he called my room. "Let's go have dinner with me." I was like, "Okay." To me, he was going to apologize to me. He's going to say, "Oh, it was my mistake. I should hear you." Well, I sat down on the table with him. We went to a Mexican place because he used to like Mexican place, and I did too. And he's like, "What happened to Eliseo today? You and Eliseo today?" I was like, "Yeah, waiting for an apology. Like, you two don't know how to drive. You and him. You're. He said some bad words to me, and I was like, "Okay, Jay. Okay, thanks. But you're gonna learn. You guys gonna learn. Sometimes you're gonna learn." Like, okay, fine. But I had a lot of fun working with him. And I learn a lot too.
Yeah, AJ can be a little difficult. He can be a little cantankerous, as they say here.
Yeah. Yeah, but I like this kind of people, that
Right. Yeah. That's the kind of guys I grew up around. Like my dad, very similar. And people who listen to the show know what I was friends with Parnelli, and Parnelli was like that. And other race drivers and people in racing I've met over the years. That's just kind of their personalities. I mean, not everybody, obviously, but that, especially in the older days, that tend to be more of the type of personality. Is like, man, they didn't want to hear excuses and stuff like that, and that's just how they were.
Yeah, but I like, I one thing that is kind of taking the shine of the racing today. It's like everybody has to be straight, has to say whatever the PR tells
Right,
them to say. And I used to like the way you used to be. Like with AJ, somebody puts a microphone in his mouth, he's
right,
gonna say anything. Everything he wants. He's not gonna try to be this or that. And then I think the sport needs more of these, need more people saying what they want to say, and if
I
they do
agree.
something wrong, they just get penalized or something, but they need to be true.
I agree. And I think it's interesting. Everybody says you got to be this way, but the bottom line is this all the sports, whether it's NASCAR in America or IndyCar, the more those popular drivers tend to be the ones who are the most outspoken. Whether it's Tony Stewart or Kyle Busch or Dale Sr. or AJ Foyt, Mario to a large degree, very outspoken. Um, and it just I think that's a really interesting thing. Everybody says, "Oh, you got to be this way," but at the end of the day, the people who tend to be most popular are the ones that say how they feel. I'm not saying they're always right, but they say how they feel.
Yeah, I mean, at least you know them. You
Right.
uh, feel like that guy has a personality like I do, so I'm gonna cheer
Right.
for him. And then this and that. I think this is good, because once you put like a mask of a good boy, and I do everything right, I'm the role model here, they're all the same.
Well, not only that, but the moment then that once you do that, the moment you put your foot over the line, like just put a toe over the line, you get judged so much harsher because, well, you didn't present yourself that way, so.
Right. Yeah.
Right. The so besides like Indianapolis, what were some of your favorite IRL tracks that I mean, obviously you won in Kansas, right? So I would think that's probably one of your favorite tracks.
You know what? I used to like the short tracks better.
Yeah.
We race in. I remember when we went. I don't remember the name. They don't race there anymore. A 3/4 of a mile track. It was
Oh, well, there was, well,
What's like Richmond?
Iowa,
Richmond?
Richmond.
Richmond.
Yeah.
Richmond was really nice. Uh, I don't know if I don't like Phoenix very much because I never had good luck there. I never had a good race in Phoenix. I don't know. That's a track that I hate the place. I mean, I like the place, but I don't.
Right.
Results there. Wasn't.
It's so much different today than when you ran there too. It's completely
Yeah.
different now. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it definitely was an acquired taste, that dog leg and back straightaway, but you had to figure out how to run across it straight, and
Yeah.
it's tough,
That turn one in Phoenix was, it's crazy. It's you get there, you end up on the end of the straight, you're too fast, and the corner is tight on the beginning and start to get
It opens up.
and it's hard to find the line.
Yeah, my brother ran Silver Crown cars there, which open wheel car, and Gary Benhouse and George Schneider both told him you had to kind of aim for those cars. I'm not saying IndyCar, but you had to kind of aim for the fence as you're coming through too. You had to kind of aim for the fence, and then the car would just naturally turn and get across the dog leg from there. But people had a tendency to want to pinch the car down,
Yeah,
which would really slow you
a
down.
little earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I like Texas. I like I mean, I had
Sure.
an accident there in Texas, but I like the track. And the racing there is really nice. I had some good races there. One race I think I was driving for Team Extreme our first year. I was leading or second place something. Then I ran out of fuel. With AJ, I finished third there, right behind Jeff Ward and Al Jr. And I think Texas was the place where I had the best races. Never won the race there, but it was always fun.
The racing back then too, especially at those places, was so tight. I mean, what is that like when you, because you didn't really come from that type of background where it was so tight. Like, what was that like the first few times you ran these ovals in the races? You're just right on top of each other all the time.
Well, I like you said, you're not used to be so close to, or
Right.
maybe like in a 3-car, and especially if you're in the middle car, you're like your life depends of those two guys. it's very hard, you know. But once you're in the role, you know, you kind of don't feel that anymore. And I
Right.
have a good friend, my friend that used to be my spotter, Jeff Troyer. He lives in Indy too. Uh,
I know. I think I've met Jeff a few times, and I apologize, Jeff, if you watch this, and I know you better than I think I do. But yeah, I've definitely heard the name if I don't exactly know him.
yeah, he used to be my spotter since the beginning. And even when I was driving for AJ, he had some spotters there. And I was like, AJ, can I bring my guy here? Because I trust him, and I know he knows. I mean, our communication was very good. So I think he did some races for me, and then he was working for Simpson at the time. He was working for the helmets,
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
and but it was very good. It's a good friend of mine. Still talk to him.
Oh, nice.
So, you know, so you talk about between 2003 2006, you know, kind of opening a go-kart track. So, you know, after you left Indy, in 2006, I know you do motocross and stuff now, but did you do any other types of racing?
Well, I did in 2004. I did 1 year in stock car here in Brazil,
Okay. Okay.
which is different than stock cars you've got, but it's a it's not a it's a tubular car with a Chevrolet motor on it. And to be true, it's for me it was harder to come from IndyCar to stock car than from coming from jet ski to racing
Really?
cars
Yeah.
because the car was very heavy. You have to brake like a lot earlier, and then you have to
Yeah,
be really slow. No, I mean not slow. You have to really be careful. And if you try to overdrive the car, you slow down. And I didn't enjoy that. But I had the contract to do the whole year. I had the sponsors. I made some money too, so I was doing more, just so I don't abandon racing cars. But I didn't enjoy very much racing stock car.
I've heard a lot of people say guys that went formula racing first and then go to stock cars. I You see a lot of them really, even somebody like Dario who struggled and as great a driver as Montoya is, didn't really have as many wins as you would have thought he would have. And I think just like you said, it's so easy to overdrive them, and you lose so much once you do. It's total different mindset. You run formula cars, and you're just pouring it down in the corner, and got all that downforce and all that, and then in a stock car, like you said, you got back the corners way up, and it's just yeah, it's really interesting how many guys that just really kind of struggle with that, just not over driving. And I knew somebody that worked at Hendrick, not Hendrick, he worked at Ganassi when Montoya's there. When they'd go testing, they would actually, if they'd pull a little spoiler out of it, it would go faster because he couldn't drive the car as hard because he knew that it would step out. So they were peeling down what they could use for downforce off the car so he'd slow him down so he'd go faster.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because in my first race in I mean, not my first race, the race I went to Interlagos, I think it was the second race of the year. I know the lap times that they used to drive there, and in the first session, I went out of the pits and I did my warm up lap, did my second lap, my third lap. I was still learning the track. I was looking at the braking points and then trying to avoid any bumps. Try to learn the track. And when I looked on the dash, I was like a half a second off the time that I supposed to drive. And I was like, man, I'm gonna beat everybody now because I mean I'm not even trying, and I'm only half second slower. Next lap, I want to be like a second and a half faster than everybody. So I try harder next lap, and I was like a second and a half slower. So then I realized you have to be very patient. You have to be very what the word I should say, very
Just patient. Well, like you said, just have patience. And,
very, to just drive the car around and like you're enjoying, the track. It's
yeah.
not like a car with a lot of downforce, like an Indy car. I never drove an Indy car on the road course, but I imagine Formula One, IndyCar, you have to be really hard and brake hard and turn in, have to work, try to get as fast as you can. But on
Right.
stock cars, you have to kind of control your mind a little bit, to control yourself. So, because if you try a little bit, you like you said, you overdrive, you're a second slower.
Right.
Now, what are your thoughts about IndyCar today? I mean, obviously the cars are a lot different. We have the aero screen now, um, and a lot of other safety things. But people always talk about safety, and as you would probably say, like in the early 2000s, cars were as safe as they could be because it's safe as I mean, you don't know any different. And from 20 years from now, people will be saying, I didn't believe people were driving Indy cars in 2025 because they're not safe. But what do you think about racing today?
Well, I like to. I mean, I'm not gonna say I'm gonna watch all the races,
Yeah,
but every time I know there's a race on TV, I try to follow. And I mean, it's I don't know many guys right now. I don't.
Right.
It's like it's like a. Let's say I'm going to talk about motocross now. When I watch the Supercross or an AMA motocross, I know the name of the guy. I don't know personally the guys, but I know the name of the guys. I know this guy here has a problem with that guy, and then this guy's fast. That other guy, and I know the deal.
yeah,
And like if I watch the motocross in Europe, I mean it's the same motocross, but I don't know the guys. So it's not very interesting enough to me. And I like the races the way they are, but I'm not. I don't
You're not invested
do
in it.
that anymore, and I don't
yeah.
do that. But it's a. I mean, if there's a race car that I'm supposed to watch, I'll watch IndyCar. I don't enjoy watching Formula One because for me, Formula One now is boring. I mean, this year is being a little better, but past years, only two guys or maybe three guys had a chance to win, and that's what I like in IndyCar. You never know. Guy could start in 17th place and win the race, and then I think this is the fun part of the thing. And I think the American people, they know better how to make a show. They make a. It's not only a race; it's a show. You go there, and watch, and then I think it's enjoyable to watch. But I don't follow.
Hmm.
I don't know what the drivers are doing. I don't know.
Yeah.
Uh, I know the teams are racing, but I'm not very into that right now.
It's interesting you're talking about motocross. 2025 is a big year for motocross in Indiana because we have the Motocross of Nations in October at
Yeah,
Ironman motocross. So yeah, I
yeah, I heard
enjoy
that. It was it's gonna be in September, no?
October. I think September, October, maybe October. But yeah, Motocross of Nations, which is the big, like the Olympics of
Yeah.
motocross, right? So all riders from all over the world. We also have, well, obviously we have We just had Supercross here last month. We have outdoor motocross race, AMA motocross in the summer. And then we have a series in the United States called GNCC, which is Grand National Cross Country Series. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but they just race loops through the woods. And the big
Yeah,
one
yeah.
is Ironman in October.
And I probably are gonna be racing in the United States by the end of the year. And
Oh, nice.
and in Glen Helen at the end of the year,
Uh-huh.
they
Oh,
have
really?
the World Vet. A couple of friends of mine went the last year, and we're trying to get like a Brazilian team to go there to race. I'm almost 50 years old now, so I'm gonna be racing in my class, probably in beginners. I'm not gonna race for the pros. Don't want to embarrass myself, but I think it'll be fun. Going back to United States to race.
Yeah. Yeah, the
What is it
Ironman would
about
be a
winter?
race. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Aaron. Go
No, no, I
ahead.
was just gonna say, yeah, look up the Ironman in October. That's a race. I mean, there's 80-year-olds out there racing. It's a 2 hour, 3 hour. Well, if you do the amateur race, it's 2 hour race.
Oh, maybe I can beat those 80-year-old guys.
Yeah, they're probably pretty fast.
What drew you to motocross? I mean, did you ride bikes as a kid, and then it's just something you picked back up, or?
No, it was when I came back to Brazil and I did that year in stock car. And for me, I used to race since I was 13 years old. And you have to do something. I mean, I had to do something. I couldn't be just here spending my weekends doing nothing. And I have some friends that used to race motocross, and I had the go-kart track. And then besides the go-kart track, there's a big space that my friends said, hey, let's build a motocross track here. And we built like a small track, and then ended up buying his bike. He bought a new bike because he was racing. He sold me the old one. I started to ride, and it came from there. So to me now it's like my weekend sport, and we ride every Saturday. And now around my city here, there's like 3 tracks. There's one in
Oh
my
wow!
farm. There's another one. It's like 30 minutes from here, and another one is like an hour from here. And I know all the owners of all those tracks, and we say like let's this Saturday let's open my track. So everybody from the other tracks they come here, we ride here, and then oh let's next Saturday we're going to this other track, and then we go to all the other track. But just to practice, and sometimes that when there's a race we go to the races too, but more as a practice sport.
Hey, Aaron, am I wrong? Jack Miller has a track too, doesn't he?
Yeah, that you would have raced. You would have raced against Dr. Jack, right, Airton?
Yeah, my first year, it was his last year, I think.
Okay. Yeah,
I
he
think
has a. He used to rate. He used to ride. I don't think he does anymore, but he used to ride motocross, and he has a motocross track at his house.
oh yeah, cool.
But it was interesting, Scott, when he was talking about having a bad crash at Texas. I don't think we've talked to a single IRL guy who hasn't had a bad crash
Yeah, no,
at
you're right.
Texas. He's like, we're good friends with Jimmy Kite, and he's told me multiple times about when he got lifeline out of Texas, I think.
Yeah, my accident, it was a bunch of accidents after my crash in Texas, because I crashed there in Texas. The next weekend, Giafoni crashed, but it was someplace else. I don't remember where. And then on the next race or next, and there's, I think Tony Rena died, or somebody
Hmm.
died on that year. I don't remember who.
Well, Tony died at testing at
At the
Speedway.
Speedway, yeah.
Yeah.
Either well, somebody. It was that year. That it was me, Giafoni, and then there's some other guy that Kenny Bragg crashed that year too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a bad
Then he
one.
had a big crash too, and I think that year was the last year. Well, the following year they put those wall barriers. I don't know what they call it, soft
Safer,
wall,
safer wall, safer
safer
barriers,
wall.
safer
Yeah,
barriers.
that
Yeah.
was the following year after all those crashes. Maybe if
Yeah.
maybe if I had that thing, and in my crash was the funny thing was I was going to turn three, I mean turn 1, 2, 3, and 4 in Texas on the backstretch, and I started to turn in, and then my steering wheel got real light, and then just went straight to the wall, crashed on the wall. I don't know how fast I was, flat out on the track, and then nothing happened to me on the first crash. That was fine. And then the car went to the middle of the track and then came back to the wall a lot slower. And then on the second time he hit the wall, that time
Hmm.
already he crashed the tub and crashed broke my everything on my right side, which I think is the first time it crashed. I had all the radiator, everything on the side, kind of hold the impact a little bit.
Right.
And
Yeah.
then on the second one, that was and we didn't know what happened. And we thought about the flat tire, or maybe I did some mistake that I don't remember. And then somebody showed up with a picture of the car uh, before it hit the wall, with the rear sitting down on the asphalt, a lot of sparks coming out, and you could see on the picture the front, the right front wheel was up on the air
Yeah.
before it hit the
Hmm.
wall. So
Wow.
something broke on the rear suspension, and the car sat down, and then it lost contact to the front tire to the ground. So
Yeah. Those cars take so much G loading there that If a part's got a flaw in it, it's going to expose it.
Yeah. But I was so good, well treated for the people from the track, and then from the hospital, and then they flew me they fly me to Indianapolis, and I did my hand surgery in Indy, and then the hospital there was, perfect, and everything was perfect. And then I went to the rehab center, which I visited when I went back in 2006. I went there. People there was great too.
Where was it
And
at? Was it on 38th Street? Was it up by Eighth Street?
Rehabilitation Hospital of Indianapolis, probably, right?
yeah, first the hospital was I forgot the name of the hospital. Where they seen all the drivers, but the rehab center is near a movie theater and
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would
yeah.
be it. 38th Street and 465.
I think
Yeah.
so. 465, you
Yeah.
pass the entrance to the speedway and keep going up, and then on the left. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of guys go there. I didn't realize how long that's been there, Scott. That's been there a while, huh?
Yeah, I didn't either. You know, Robin had to go there after a car crash. She had to go
Oh.
there. But
Yeah.
yeah, I didn't realize how many people have been there either until after a car crash, and we talked to different people. Like, yeah, well, I was there.
Yeah.
I stayed
That's
there for
great.
almost a month.
Yeah.
Between Indy
Wow.
and the rehab, And the funny thing is, as soon as they did the surgery, the next day I went to Indy. They did all the surgery on my hand. And on the third day, I went to the rehab, and the first thing that the lady came in and said, "No, you're gonna try to walk." I was like, "No, I just did
Right.
surgery on my leg, Yeah, but you have to walk. And I was like, I look around. I was like, I don't know if they know what they're doing or not, but I'm gonna do it, And then lately, I realized that that's what they do. You have to have impact so the bone gets hard.
Right.
Now, when
Yeah,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, yeah, that's unfortunately that's the downside of racing is stuff like that for sure.
Yeah.
Now, when you were racing IndyCar, were you living in Indy, or where were you living? I'm
No,
guessing
I
the
used to
United
live in
States, right?
Miami.
Miami. Okay.
Because I had a place in Miami since the jet ski times. And
Makes sense.
Miami was funny because there's a small island close to downtown, Brickell Key. Every Brazilian driver used to live there. It was one time it was like me, Cristiano Damara, Walter Salles, Tony Canan, Hélio Castro Neves. There's a couple more, I don't remember their names. They all live in between these two buildings, one in front of the other. And then we travel to all the places. We from Brazil, we don't like the cold weather very much. We don't.
Yeah, no, the Brazilian drivers mention that often that they're not fond of the cold. That's for sure.
I remember when I drove for Tasman, the first thing that Steve Horn told me is, "Oh, you're gonna have to move to Dayton." And me and Cristiano, we went there, and I look at Cristiano, he looked at me. I was like, "No way, I'm gonna live here." I like the sun. I like the pool, the beach. Today I enjoy the cold weather. I go ski in the United States every year almost. But back then, I couldn't live I couldn't live in the snow.
I don't blame you. I'm just the opposite. I liked it colder when I was younger, and now I hate it the older I get. So
and I think you kind of answered this, but are there any IRL guys that you've still, or any drivers you race against, you still kind of keep in contact with at all, or?
No, last time I was in Miami, I met with Castro Neves.
Okay.
He was in a restaurant, and I met with him. Spoke to him a little bit. But no, because I think because of all these guys, they know each other since the go-kart times.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
then they grew up as a group, and I was the outsider. I was the guy that came in, so I was never mixed up with them. I was, liked them a lot. They like me, but I was never doing some stuff together with them, like Tony and Elio. They used to hang out together, and a couple other guys. But I had my own. I not that I mean, I used to go dinner with them and everything, but not like I was a friend to them, And
Right.
once I stopped racing, I started doing my own business, and I got lost contact with them. I mean, if I see some of them, Tony and like I said, Castro Neves, we talk a lot, and with Castro Neves, we spoke for like almost an hour, 'cause I start to
Oh,
remember stuff,
yeah.
and all the, I mean, for him, still present, he's still racing, For me, there was an old days,
Right. You mentioned having your daughter and telling her about things. Does she ever like pull up YouTube videos of you and watch the old races and stuff?
Sorry.
Does she pull up like old YouTube videos of you and
Yeah,
of the old races and that?
yeah. There's one race, the Kansas race. There's in the YouTube, and then
Yeah.
and the other day she until like a 3 years ago, she thought that I raced go-karts. I was like, no, it's the thing
Yeah.
that I raced it. Then I show her, and then she looked for, and then she saw the crashes, everything. And the other day, I was watching the race, the 2000 race in Indianapolis, where I was showing her that I was going. It was before the last year, before Indy, and I was telling her that I used to race there. And there's some race that I look for on the YouTube, and then we watched together. I mean, only the part that I was close to the leading and everything, and she was like very impressed. Oh, you did that, yeah. So yeah.
That's crazy. It's so funny. Is like you said, you almost kind of feel like a bullshitter, almost like when you talk about your old stories. And in my time in racing, I don't do what I used to do. So now, if I'm telling Aaron something or I'm talking about something, I feel the same way. I mean, obviously, I wasn't a driver like yourself, but it is weird when you get yourself distanced and then it's almost like it didn't happen, even though it did.
Yeah, it seems like it's another person. I'm
It
watching the
Yeah.
does.
I I know that I was doing that. I remember everything, but it seems like I'm, like I said, it seems like I'm bullshitting her. I'm talking.
Right. Yeah,
It's
it's really
like,
weird. It's such a
weird.
strange thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's just funny. Like, we've interviewed, a lot of guys that they have normal jobs now. And like, for example, Alex Lloyd, he just has a Monday 8 through 5 normal job. And I think he made a quote, Scott, I always think about it. He said something about like, I don't wear the shirt. Like he doesn't wear a shirt that says I drove in the Indy 500. And like, they would do like, a lot of like team building exercises, like the two truths and a lie or whatever. And he'd always, say, oh, I drove in the Indy 500, and everyone will always be like, "Well, that's a lie." But like like your motocross friends, like do they all know that you drove Indy cars and drove in the Indy 500?
Some of them know,
Yeah,
not all of them, because I mean, I'm almost in my 50s, and then guys, there's a bunch of new guys, that when I used to race, I mean, I don't know if they're even born yet,
Right.
but like I said, with the YouTube, they can check. And one time, one guy, he came to me and he asked me, "Hey, is your dad used to race IndyCar?" No, it was me. He's like, no, no way. I said, yeah, it was me. It was funny because he thought
funny.
it was some
Oh.
old guy that used to do that, and not me.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
You
And
you
then,
know for some reason I thought you were sponsored. You had sponsor of PlayStation at one point, but were you ever sponsored by PlayStation or was like
no,
associate
actually,
sponsor?
the game you mentioned before,
Yeah,
it was the other thing too. For me, when they say they're gonna put my name on the video game, it was the best
yeah.
thing. I mean, I love playing games, and PlayStation, and everything, and to have myself on the game, it was really fun.
Yeah, does your daughter know? Does your daughter know about the game?
Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah,
showed
so
her.
she'd be really, yeah,
And but the problem is everybody had their own cars, like the colors and everything.
yeah.
That time, AJ didn't sign to authorize to have the images of our cars. So my car and Eliseo's car, are the only two cars in the game that it's blank. There's nothing riding on.
Mm.
So I was a little pissed off with that, because but it's fun, it's still fun.
Yeah, no, it's cool to be in a video game. I love that game. But yeah, you have anything else, Scott?
I don't, man. I just want to say it's been an absolute pleasure, and I remember when you raced, and I mean, you were always challenging up front, um, and it's awesome, man. I mean, like we were just talking about, like you look back and it just, I think it's great that you have, even though you suffered a terrible crash, you still have good memories of it, and it's something you can share with your family today, and I just think that's awesome.
Yeah, it's great for me. It's a great life experience for me. I wouldn't, if I had to do something different, like I said, I would prepare myself better for what was coming. I think looking right now, it seems like I wasn't ready for the challenge that presents to me at that time. But anyway, I tried to do as best as I could. And then I'm in one piece right now. I had that on my history books, and I enjoy a lot, and then I look forward to that sometime to go there to Indy back again, watch a race, and I want to take my daughter too,
Yeah,
show her in person what used to be.
absolutely.
And I meant to say a moment ago too. They just redid the museum, and you can find some stuff on YouTube with that, and it looks beautiful. I mean,
Oh
it
yeah,
looks stunning. And it just opened like 2 days ago, and
good.
I think they have, and I haven't been there, so don't quote me on this, but I think they have a kind of interactive thing where they actually show or talk about some of the rundowns from the races, from various races and that sort of thing. So I think that would be really good too. Like if you can bring your family back, and she can kind of see the era which you were, because all the eras are represented in the museum now, and she can kind of get a grasp of really what it was like and to see the facility. And I think it'd be really interesting too to hear your thoughts today. We've talked about it with Little Al and every driver who's been on here who's ran the 500 about off 16th Street, the main entrance off 16th Street, where you go underneath the tunnel and you come up and see the museum, how that for so many of them, that's such a magical moment every time that they get to do it. And I think it'd be really interesting to hear your thoughts of it today going back.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it would be really nice too. I was planning a couple of years ago. I was going to United States. I don't remember what I was going to do there, and I was like, man, it was going to be on the a week before the race on carb day. No, not carb day. On the qualifying week.
Hmm.
Right.
And I was trying to change the flights and do something to go there, but it was crazy. There's no hotels to stay, and then flights were all full. I couldn't get 3 seats for me and my wife and my daughter. So I was like, no, let's plan this better, and then talk to somebody there, and then maybe get some passes to get in. Uh, I would love to be back there. Be back there with my family back again, and then watch the race, and not having the pressure to
Right.
Sure.
to go under the. I don't know if they still have the bridge that goes under the to the pits. Where the what the name of those guys is on the side, the alley cats. Are they still
Yeah.
there?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're still there.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was
You
friends
got
with those guys.
you still got the yellow shirts and alley cats and all that, man.
Cool.
And you may think that people won't remember you, and
They'll remember
people
you.
will definitely remember you. I promise you that you would be shocked at how many times you'll hear somebody yell your name, and because all the drive, I mean, there's people who remember every driver that they saw in their lifetime. You know what I'm saying? So
No, definitely gonna try to go back there.
yeah, you'll get a very warm reception. So yeah,
And this
you ought
year
to do it.
I'm gonna be able to have a beer with them, because when I
Right,
raced, they used to call me there and I couldn't drink. But now I can
right,
go there and drink with them.
absolutely.
That's right. That's right. Well, yeah, Airton, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it, and it's an absolute pleasure. And hopefully, we'll see you back in Indy. Let us know if you end up coming.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, man. I'm sorry we scheduled this interview so many times. I know,
No,
and
you're fine.
but
Oh, yeah,
we
it's been
did.
our pleasure, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Scott. Thank you very much, man. Thank
Yeah,
you.
absolutely.
And
All
if you
right.
guys ever come to Brazil, come visit me.
Absolutely. I'm doing that. I'm booking the flight right now.
Pick you up in the airport.
All right.
You don't have
Sounds
to
good.
worry about place to stay. You stay here with us, and then I'll pick you up at the airport, and
That's awesome.
I'll cook you a barbecue.
Oh, that's what I'm really wanting. That Brazilian barbecue.
That's the best part.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
cool. And you come here too, Aaron.
Yeah. Yep. I'll go there when Scott goes.